Welcome back to the Pursuit of Progress podcast. I'm Adam Lang, here with my co-host Ben Adams, and today we're going to be talking about something seemingly small that can definitely have a huge impact on your financial future. It's known as the $6 everyday latte. This isn't just about coffee, though. It's about small financial habits that can make or break your ability to build wealth. So, what's your version of the $6 latte? Maybe it's fast food, subscriptions, shopping, maybe just Uber ride shares. Well, stick around because we're going to dive into these 6 reasons why small daily expenses might be holding you back from financial success and what to do about it. Ben, welcome back, buddy. Happy to be here with you again. How's it going?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. And I'm just so passionate about personal finance, helping people, educating them on money. And this is a topic today that I'm really, really excited to share and discuss. Might sound small, but we're going to go into why it's such a big deal. So very excited to be here and to share.
Well, a couple questions for you before we dive into this. First off, are you a latte guy? I know you were a coffee guy for a long time, and I think you just totally cut it out of your little morning routine, right? Because didn't you used to go to Starbucks right after the gym every morning?
Yeah, there was a period where it was part of my morning routine where I would go to the gym and then on the way back from the gym, go grab a Starbucks and then take that home and then do my reading and everything else. And it's really about setting the expectation for, your financial habits now and then moving forward. And it's not about saying no to the latte. It's about, number one, are you valuing that? Are you truly valuing that? And how much of a emphasis on the value are you getting from that? And then it's just also looking at other things and how does this habit play into your overall financial vision, and all of the other daily habits that you might have.
I love anything that involves compounding in just these small daily, actions or tasks, whatever we're referring to, but just how over time they become so massive. It reminds me of an episode we did, I think, middle of last year about just like the extra hour, like instead of doing 8 hours a day, do 9, and the one extra hour a day over the course of, I forgot what it was, like you get an entire extra month, I think it is, out of a year if you just work 1 extra hour a day. I forgot the exact specifics, but anyways, just that huge dramatic change over time.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up because I was actually just having this conversation with my daughter on the way home here before the podcast. And we were talking about, she's really getting into running. She's taking that very seriously. She has a very big vision for herself. And so for her to go to a top level, which is where she's training at right now, compared to like a really elite level, like, well, you know what the reality is? She's already doing 90% of the work to be at the elite level. She really only has to add another 10% to her daily training. But that 10% is what takes you maybe from the top 10% to the top 1%. And so it's really ultimately just running another 10 minutes a day. And if you're already running an hour, what's another 10 minutes after you've been running an hour? It's not much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Well, let's just kind of go through a few of these reasons that you put together. I know you have this actually as a topic on one of your latest YouTube episodes on your YouTube channel, American Money 101. So anybody that's listening that hasn't checked that out, make sure you guys do. But preparing for that video, it sounds like you were going to, kind of share some of the same concepts today. So the first of these 6 reasons you put together is just talking a little bit again about this latte factor. So tell us a little bit about that one first.
Yeah, what the latte factor is number one, it's just recognizing how much over time, whatever your daily fix is, how much that adds up over time. You go buy a latte, it's $6. You're not thinking about that. You do it on a Monday, you do it on a Tuesday, big deal, right? Well, here's the deal. If you're doing that 7 days a week, that comes out to $42 per week. In other words, if you do that for a full year, it's going to come out to over $2,100, almost $2,200 in a year. And so when you start to look at these little habits that you have added up over time, you just made the mention about compounding interest, compounding habits. And a lot of us we don't have an awareness of how these small habits are impacting us over the medium and long term. We're only focused on the short term. So number one is just acknowledging that you're spending almost $2,200 annually on coffee, on your daily latte. What is that over 10 years? Well, over 10 years, that's almost 22,000. Now, when you look at the opportunity cost, if you could have invested that or done some other things over that same 10 years, even at a modest 7% return, you're talking about nearly $30,000 of potential earning over that same period. And so I'm not saying that you have to give up the latte. I'm not. Number one, it's just something that you need to be aware of, and this is something that I've just learned to ask myself: do I really truly value this thing? Do I value the latte that much? And there are days that I will go and get the latte, but number one, it's about having an awareness and about being in control. And that's ultimately, for most people, they don't have a financial vision, so they're just on autopilot. They have all of these expenditures, and the reason the latte ultimately is such a big deal, like why I did this episode of my podcast, is because it's not just about the $6 daily latte. If you are living like that, well, you are likely, how many other areas of your life are you probably having those same approaches with small, seemingly meaningless expenses that just add up over time? How many of us have all these different subscriptions? All of this stuff adds up. And so it's just a new way to think about it.
Love that. Rocket Mortgage is a really good app for you guys to check out if you're looking for a free download. It kind of like breaks up all those monthly charges and which ones you can cancel real easily. Just puts things again into perspective when you start adding it up over time and realizing where you maybe are able to cut some of that fat. It's cool.
Yeah, I got to share this stat here by Acorns. And who do you think gets a tougher rap when it comes to money management, millennials or Gen Z? I feel like it used to be millennials, but now like you're starting to see more Gen Z kind of headlines in the news. This stat though is about millennials. Did you know that over 60% of millennials spend more on coffee than they save for retirement? I mean, think about that. Is there something wrong with that?
I don't think very many of them at all are saving anything for retirement. So something's more than nothing, I think, is the trend on that one. Wow.
Something to be aware of.
Yeah, man, that's nuts. Well, I think that was a really good starter point just to kind of give an overview of kind of what this is all about. So the second one is, going a little bit more onto I'd say the macro level, which is just living beyond your means.
Yeah, and the living beyond your means, what this is really about, this is topic number 2 here. This is about consumerism and how consumerism really traps people into desiring the wrong things, living beyond their means, and living paycheck to paycheck. People get so focused on, I have to have this, I need this, whether it's the latte, the new gadget, designer clothes, because it feels good in that moment. Let me ask you something. Are you really going to, how much value are you going to place on that latte 10 years from now? Are you going to place any value on that at all? No, you're not. In fact, you're not even going to remember that you did that. So that's something that I've learned as I've gone my own wealth building journey. I now have a heightened awareness of how are my financial habits today? What impact is that going to have on me today? And then what impact is that going to have 5 years from now and 10 years from now? And I'm not saying that you can't have these things that you enjoy and that you value. If you truly do, you should identify what you really value. But here's the thing, you should identify what you value. You shouldn't let consumerism or others tell you what you value. And that's what the problem is. So many of us let our American culture tell us what we should value. Have you ever bought something because it was trending or your friends had it, or maybe it was going around in social media, you're excited to go buy it? Could be
Absolutely.
shoes, a sweatshirt. My kids love doing that. They have all these different trends that are going. Right now, there's this Abercrombie and Fitch sweatshirt that's like so popular. And so my daughter bought one, and they sent her the wrong one. It was a different style. But it's like, when you let other people tell you what to value, you're just not going to be fulfilled by it.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree with that. I think it's just crazy too, just the world we live in today, just how easy it is to purchase things where, 15 years ago, you'd have to get in your car, drive to the department store, use that Abercrombie and Fitch sweater as an example. You'd have so many opportunities to change your mind and think about it a little bit longer and realize maybe this isn't the most financially smart decision. Whereas now you can be laying in your bed, one eye open laying down on your pillow with your Amazon on your phone and buy the exact same thing instantly. Just the lack of thinking things through nowadays because of the convenience. Everything is immediate. It's crazy.
It's funny on that same line. A lot of times in the morning, one of the first things I'll do is log into my bank accounts and just see what activity happened overnight. What came in. And so sometimes it's like 5 a.m. and I'm not even like fully conscious, but I'm logging into my banking app, and then I'll start like moving money around and like paying stuff. And then I'm like, and then I'll, really wake up like an hour later or a half hour later. And then realizing that I'm moving stuff to like the wrong account because I'm doing this like while I'm half awake. So don't do that. It's even worse if you're buying stuff while you're half asleep.
Yeah.
But this is one of the big points I wanted to make with this right here, is because everyone always acts like it's an income problem. And a lot of these other influencers out there, they always focus on making more money. Like more money is always the answer. I have personally helped people that make hundreds of thousands of dollars a month that are still living paycheck to paycheck. And that is what ultimately this is about. If you are finding a way through your $6 latte and other means to not solidify what your values are and your personal spending habits, it's not automatically just going to happen because you make more money. It's an actual skill, and you need to learn to develop these skills. And so, as your income increases, that's fantastic. But unless you learn how to truly value and identify what those things are, those experiences, those things, those habits, and how to run a balanced budget that's healthy, that's what this is ultimately about.
Love that. Well, let's move on to the third one. Third one is, I think, a really good segue because it's really kind of a lot of the similar stuff that we just finished talking about. And that's just the financial freedom versus instant gratification. I'll start by just saying, I think, it is so important just to teach maybe kind of like train your brain in a way, train that muscle to hold off from that instant clicking the button on your phone or on your computer on that Amazon, even if it just is a matter of just adding it to your cart or your wish list and just giving it a few days just to kind of marinate and kind of sit there before purchasing it. And when I do that, I bet half the time, if not even more, whatever I put in the cart, I end up not purchasing. I just kind of have a second thought about it and I remove it. So just kind of figuring out a way just to not get that dopamine hit from the instant gratification piece to this.
I know it's so true. And I know that I've shared this before, but I'll do the same thing when I go to Costco. Just because Costco has so many fun gadgets and neat things. I'll go there with my cart, put everything in it that I think is fun and that I would love to have. And then I'll just have it in my cart. I'm walking around Costco. And then as I'm walking around, I'm just thinking, okay, it's going to cost this much. That means I can't put this towards my saving and invest goal. It means that it would delay this goal another month or another couple months. And, I start to think through what the opportunity cost is. And then I always end up taking the stuff out.
Just one follow-up question. Do you take the stuff out? Or do you just ditch the cart full of a bunch of stuff and make the staff put it all away? Are you just giving them extra work, or what's going on
It's
here?
like I'm shoving it back there by the dog food, like a cart full of like electronics and like TVs and computers, and it's like hidden in the back corner by the dog food.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Um,
Share that Warren Buffett quote. I thought that was a good one for this topic.
yeah. There's a famous Warren Buffett quote where he said, "Do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving." And as I have gotten more mature and more disciplined on my wealth building journey, I now every single month I have a financial goal for myself. I have a goal that I set, so I have a goal for February already for my for my personal finances. I have, business goals, career goals. I have personal money goals. And so I already have that identified how much I want to save. And so I put that money, it's in my saving account. So ultimately, so it can be used for investing. So I have my goal written out already for February. So I know how much I want to save. Once I hit that number, then I will consider spending. And so in the United States, we have it all backwards. We want to spend first and then save what's left over. And when you have that mentality, well, guess what? There's nothing ever left over to actually save and invest.
Yep.
And I also would agree with you. You brought up the delayed gratification, and when you get in the habit of doing that with whatever it is, even things like diet, nutrition, I now try and delay things whenever I can because I know in the long term it is so much more rewarding. And Dave Ramsey, for example, he'll talk about financial peace a lot. And until you really experience what that is, if you're someone that's been living paycheck to paycheck, or if money is a stressful point for you, your spouse, your family, your relationships, your life will be radically changed when you experience financial peace. And when you are in total control of your finances, the peace, it just drips down into all of these other areas of your life. And on the flip side, when you have financial stress, like, do you think that impacts your relationship with your spouse or your partner? Do you think if you have financial stress, you're going to be working and living from a place of creativity and abundance, or are you going to be living from a place of demand and fatigue and stress? And so that it's about peace of mind and having the clarity and the creativity. And so for me, it's been very life-changing.
Love that. Very, very well said. Well, before we move on to the remaining three, really quick, guys, I'd love just to take a quick commercial break and just say a quick thank you to our latest sponsor. So, if you are a property owner in Tucson, Arizona, looking for reliable and hassle-free property management, look no further than Roadrunner Property Care. Whether you own a vacation rental, a second home, or just an investment property, Roadrunner Property Care takes the stress out of managing your property. From routine maintenance to security checks and guest management, they handle it all, so you do not have to. With their trusted local team, you get 24/7 property monitoring, scheduled maintenance, and personalized service to keep your investment in top shape year-round. Visit roadrunnerpropertycare.com today to learn more, or give them a call and just see how they can help protect and maintain your property so you can focus on what really matters. roadrunnerpropertycare.com, your property, their priority.
Oh, I love that.
Great company.
Did you add that last part?
I did. Your property, their priority.
Wow.
You like that?
I think I think there's a new motto there. I mean, that a new slogan. That is awesome. I love that.
Beep, beep. It's the Roadrunner,
Beep,
baby.
beep. That's great. We are so blessed, aren't we, just to have the best sponsors.
I know. We really are. We are almost full for 2025, but if anybody out there is looking to get their brand, their business out to more people, more listeners and viewers, feel free to reach out and we can talk through that. Let's move on now to the fourth reason, which I think is a good one to talk about next, which is mindful spending and the financial vision.
Yeah. I would say this might be my favorite because I have realized that, not just with your finances, having a vision for every area of your life is just so critically important. And most people are just walking around, they don't have a vision for what they want their lives to look like. Well, if you don't have a vision, it means that you don't have a plan, you don't have a playbook, you're just existing, you're just going through the motions. And if you don't have a plan or a playbook, how do you know if you're making the right decisions or if you're making judgments that are aligned with who you're called to be and what your goals are? Well, it's impossible because you don't have any goals. And with a financial vision, I love sharing this story because it's something that I learned when I was a kid. When I was a teenager, my track coach made me write down all of my goals for everything, running, academic goals. And he also encouraged me to write down some financial goals at that time as well. So when I was 17 years old, I literally wrote down goals, what I wanted my financial life to look like when I got older. So when I was 17, even though I didn't have a job, I didn't have a source of income, I hadn't even graduated from high school yet. I wrote down and created a financial vision for me. And part of that was that I wanted to own my first investment property by the time I was 30. And I wanted to own 5 investment properties by the time that I was 35. Again, no job, no high school degree, no income at that time, but I had a vision and I hung that up in my bedroom. And as I went to college and every other place that I lived, I brought this goal and this piece of paper with me and hung it up right above the light switch wherever I want. So I would see it every single day. And so I allowed that goal and that vision really to seep into my spirit, and believe it. And what ended up happening is because I had this vision, my habits and actions started to change. So when I started my career, even though I wasn't earning a lot of money, I knew that I still had this goal in mind. And so it gave my money and the limited resources that I did have purpose because I was planning for something bigger. And so I was stepping in what I wanted and the goal and the vision that I had for myself, even though I still didn't have a lot of those other pieces. But by stepping into that, by being more intentional, by being more mindful with the limited resources that I did have, it gave them greater purpose and it allowed them to grow. So I didn't hit those goals. I didn't own my first investment property by the time I was 30. I didn't own 5 by the time that I was 35, but it did happen shortly after that.
Awesome. I was listening to one of the new Ed Milet episodes on a podcast last weekend, and he was just talking about dreaming, which is, similar to kind of this mindfulness, and just talking about how, most
Yeah.
people dream at night, but they're truly like top entrepreneurs. They're able to work that muscle, that dreaming muscle, and really do it during the daytime, and just being able to just always have these, kind of like one of the episodes we did recently on the big, hairy, audacious goal, the BHAG, just having these larger than life dreams, goals, similar to like what you had against, or up against your wall above your light switch, just these massive goals that at the time seem massive, but just having that repetitive, nature day in and day out of just being ingrained into you, after a while, it doesn't seem necessarily impossible anymore. So
That's right. And when you start believing, when you're 17 and you're talking about owning an investment property by the time you're 30, I mean, that seems so outrageous and so impossible, like you're saying.
mm-hmm.
But then you realize it's not. And, how I would describe what you were just saying is permission to dream, allowing yourself and giving yourself permission to dream. And this is how you know if you're, dreaming big enough. Like your dreams should be so big. They should be so effing big that they scare you. And your dreams should be 10 to 20 years in the future. So what kind of life, envision that. What kind of life do you want to live in the future? What kind of house do you want to live in? What kind of car do you want to drive? What kind of relationships do you want with your family? And then ask yourself this: what does that version of you look like? The person that is living in your dream house, driving the dream car, that has the healthy relationship with his family. How do you see that person behaving? How do you see that person showing up every day? I love that quote that you just said. Most people dream while they're asleep, but entrepreneurs dream while they're awake.
I was kind of like doing my own mindfulness version of that, and I don't know why, but that Aladdin song, Prince Ali, fabulous he, Ali Ababa. I don't know why I was thinking that was like my vision in 10 or 20 years, just being this. That's very materialistic. That's not very, not the
Hey,
best.
dude, you don't got to explain yourself. That's the
Okay,
thing. Like,
okay, okay.
if you want to have a magic carpet
I can. Okay,
and live in a palace, like that's you.
okay. Well, with that being said, let's move on to number 5. Budget priorities make every dollar count. And before you share a little bit on this with the pie chart concept, the only other thing I was just going to add in on one of these tips, one of these reasons that I think might fit in well here is if you guys have a dollar per hour pay right now, if you guys are hourly employees, or even if you aren't and you're a salary employee, or maybe you're an entrepreneur, in any of those 3 scenarios, you should still be able to figure out what your amount of what your worth is per hour, what your worth per hour is. Once you're able to do that, that also can start to, kind of create this mind shift where, let's just say, for argument's sake, your hourly value right now, you've got more of kind of like an entry level job just out of college. Maybe it's $25 an hour. Well, now all of a sudden to, maybe go out to dinner tonight with your couple buddies or your girlfriend or, somebody, and it's going to cost you $75. Well, was that worth the 3 hours to make up that same dollar amount? Just if you're able to equate it to labor, to just how much effort it's taking you to recreate that dollar amount, it oftentimes can also really help with the same idea where it's like, oh, that's not worth it. Yeah, I want that new t-shirt, but man, I don't want to work 2 hours just to pay for that on top of your regular hours, because that's already being accounted for with your monthly expenses and your other lifestyle. So just thinking it through that in that mindset, I think, can help sometimes.
And that's why the vision is so important, because if you have the vision, you will then, this is either going to add to the vision or it's going to take away. And it is important to treat yourself and, do things that you value. But if you have that, that vision is your North Star.
Mm-hmm. I think of this with fitness, and I have not been following this whatsoever recently, but same idea where it's like, oh, that burger, that's 400 calories. Yeah, that's like an hour on the elliptical. Is it worth it? Maybe not. Like just having ways to reason with what temptations you have to hopefully be enough of a reason to make that argument to resist.
Yeah. Try and think of it in terms of value, like how much value am I getting? And then what you're describing is, what is the cost?
Mm-hmm.
So how much satisfaction is this going to bring me? And what is the cost? I'm going to enjoy this burger for 20 minutes, but the cost is I would have to go get on the elliptical for an hour and a half.
Yep. Well, share with us a little bit about this pie chart. I think this is a cool concept.
Yeah, the pie chart, really what you're trying to do is think of your budget as a pie chart and where you want your money going. And this can vary a little bit depending on where you're at in your wealth journey, also in your career, your age. But ultimately, one thing that has really helped me with my budgeting and my personal financial chart is that I have never upgraded my personal expenditures. And so that's something that holds a lot of people back as their income grows and maybe their salary increases or they have more success over the years. A lot of people raise their level of lifestyle. So their housing expense increases, their cars, their auto payments increase. And pretty soon they're earning twice as much, but they're also spending twice as much. And so really, again, having that vision is so important because it'll allow you to put your pie chart together based off of what your financial priorities are. Ultimately, what usually is going to be the biggest slice is going to go to the essentials, things like housing, groceries, etc. But then you really want your next biggest slice to be savings and investments, because that is how ultimately you get ahead. It doesn't matter what your income is if you're never saving and investing. And that's never been more important than for this generation right now, millennials and Gen Z. You have to be an investor. If you're not an investor, if you're not someone that's investing, you are going to get left behind. That unfortunately, that's just the reality. And I'm not saying that it's fair. I'm not saying that I like that. That's just, when you look at housing now compared to 30 or 40 years ago, when you look at the cost of education, when you look at student loans, when you look at how much people are getting paid adjusted for inflation, like the numbers are not in the benefit of the consumer. So it's important to be disciplined, and you have to really make this stuff a priority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when the inflation amount is higher than what you're able to make on your money just invested in a typical savings account, you have to invest if you want to just break even. It's not even to make money in a certain sense. Crazy.
Yeah. And I want to share this with everyone. You just made the comment a couple of minutes ago about having essentially whatever you desire a finger click away, right, on Amazon. And a mentor recently shared this with me, and he has a net worth of several $100 million. And so just think about it like this, because the reason I found so much value in what he shared with me is because on one hand, when you have several $100 million, I mean, you could have whatever you want, right? You can go buy a brand new Bugatti, 3 or 4 or 500,000, and it doesn't mean anything. You can go buy the home in Aspen. You can go. You can have whatever you want. Now, most of us don't live a life like that, but a lot of us, to a lesser degree, can. We can log on to Amazon, and whatever we desire is right there, right? You need something, you have a want, you have a desire, you type it into Amazon, you hit purchase, checkout. It might even be at your house that day. So what he said, when you live like that, it's like really these things that we're buying, they don't have any value because they don't mean anything. When you have a net worth of several hundred millions of dollars and you can have anything that you want at any time, nothing has any value because you can always have anything that you want. So what this individual told me he does to create value for himself is he ties the things that he truly wants, that he truly has a desire for, to a reward, or as a reward. So for example, he might have a workout challenge with his daughter that he wants to go work out with his daughter for 60 days in a row. And once he does that, he will then go buy the new couch or whatever the thing is. And when he does that, that then gives that couch meaning and purpose because it's tied to the activity that he spent with his daughter. Does that make sense?
There's no way you're skipping a day if you're getting a couch at the end of this deal. I mean, that is a
Or
reward right there.
Or vacation, art, whatever it is.
Yep.
And so, the analogy that he used was like a family vacation. So he loves to travel. He loves to go on vacations with his family. There's no way he's not going to go do that. So he's going to make sure that he gets his, whatever his challenge is for that month done, so he can go have the reward. And then when he has the reward, it means so much more because he had to go achieve something to make that happen. So that just gave me like a different perspective. Obviously, I'm not anywhere near that income level and that net worth, but that's something that all of us can take away. It doesn't matter what your income is. If you start looking at things in terms of reward and rewarding yourself for certain things, it's going to make the things that you purchase have so much more value.
Love that. Just knowing myself, and I think 99.9% of human beings in this world. Other suggestion I would have when I'm thinking through that, if I was to implement that in my life, is sharing that publicly with a friend, a spouse, somebody else that can hold you accountable. Because if you're only relying on yourself, it's sometimes hard to not, start to allow yourself to slip a little bit. Oh, well, yeah, I did miss yesterday, but I was really sick, or, like you
Yeah.
when you have somebody else holding you accountable and at least visually able to see if you really are or are not following through on your word, that I think is a nice little additional way to improve the accountability success.
That's absolutely right. And I refer to that as unlocking your resources. Identifying who is going to support you with whatever your goal is. And there can be more than one person. You'll probably have some type of primary accountability partner, but then you're going to have these secondary influences as well. People that are going to support you, maybe directly, maybe indirectly, but you want to identify and write down, not just your goals, but who is going to help you achieve those goals and what role do they play?
1000%. Well,
1000%.
so let's move on to the sixth and final one, saving the best for last, the
Okay.
psychology behind why we overspend.
Listen, folks, this is how the game is played. And like number one, you have to learn to acknowledge consumerism is a game. Everyone is after your hard earned money. Everyone. Starbucks, for example, they spend over $250 million per year advertising the luxury experience behind their coffee. They spend $250 million per year to get you to think of their brand as a luxury brand. And everyone is after the consumer's money. They're after their dollar. And it is up to you. You have to recognize that. The government, these big corporations. And that is why, especially when it comes to luxury goods, that's why things are sold a certain way. And we're sold this image of what wealth and what riches look like and what success looks like. And that's why I always go back to, you can't let other people define your value and your vision. You have to define that. Don't let because if you let other people define it in our culture, well, pretty soon you're going to be doing things for everyone else. You're letting somebody else tell you what to value, and you're going to go spend your life. You're going to show up to work every day trying to earn something that you don't even value or care about. So don't make that mistake.
Yeah, the world, society is more toxic than ever right now when it comes to, the emperor has no clothes, in a sense, meaning that you see all these influencers on social media living this incredible life, getting in and out of private jets and jumping in their convertibles and, going on and on and on. But, the reality is a
They're
lot of those
pulling up to the
people are,
private jet in their Lamborghini.
yeah. And then you find out that it's a rented Lamborghini and they don't even take off. They're just hanging out on the tarmac for 20 minutes. There's just so much potential for just misrepresentation when it comes to just the true level that people are at with finances. And I think just that psychology behind social media nowadays is really detrimental. And I'm at fault a lot with that too, as well, just getting caught up in that. So just having the ability to somehow put that in its place and just realize that that isn't reality for the majority of stuff that we're seeing online.
Yeah, and that's why I always just go back to like understanding what your why is and what you value. And for me, after being in a marriage for several years that was and I wasn't even aware of this at the time, just how freaking toxic it was. Now that I've gotten through that and I'm on the other side, like for me, peace is so important. I want to have peace and a lack of stress in all of these other areas. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be stress. I know there will with teenagers, with my job sometimes, but I want there to be a fundamental foundation of peace in my life. And that's something that I value. And when you overspend, when you're not financially disciplined, when you value instant gratification versus delayed gratification, you can't have that peace. When you say yes to things, right? Think of it like this. If you're saying yes to something now, what you're really doing is saying no to your future self. When you say yes to that $6 latte every single day and every other desire that you have today, you're saying no to your future self. And that was one of the things that really helped me. I want to say yes to my future self. I want the 50-year-old version of me, the 70-year-old version, the 100-year-old version of me saying, you know what, 42-year-old Ben, thank you. Thank you for making this life when I'm 80 possible, because without the 40-year-old version, this never would have been possible.
Mm-hmm.
Versus getting to 80 and asking why or where and just hating my life.
Very well said. Well, I think we had definitely a really good range of reasons, obviously, why the $6 latte concept is really important for all of us just to occasionally think about and implement in our own lives. But just as a quick reminder on what these six were, these key takeaways. So number one, just the latte factor is definitely real. Small purchases add up over time. Number two, living beyond your means keeps you stuck. Financial habits matter more than income. Number three, choosing financial freedom over instant gratification, just remembering to think long term. Number four, mindful spending is key, tracking your expenses and aligning those with specific values. Number five, prioritize your budget wisely. Fun money comes after your financial goals. And then last but not least, number six, recognizing that marketing has a lot of manipulation. Companies want your money, but you need to be the one that controls your spending.
That's great.
All right, guys. Ben, you want to say any last words before we close this one out?
Yeah, I just want to challenge our listeners as we kind of wrap up here. Start thinking this week and just start asking yourself, what are, like, first of all, identify what are some purchases in your life that you make routinely, and then start asking yourself, what level of value, and you can even rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. How much joy, how much do I value this specific purchase? And just start to build an awareness of that. And start thinking, be aware of that and see what changes.
Love that. Yeah, just tomorrow, hit pause on the latte and see if it changes anything. Was your life any better? Was it any worse? Have a very subjective outlook on it and just think about that.
I'll just, I do the latte now just on the weekends.
Okay.
And I'll be like a regular coffee,
Well, you didn't want to have, I know that is a latte to spend in a week.
Oh, yeah.
Dad joke. Had to close that one out with a dad joke. All right, guys. We'll catch you next week on a brand new episode of the Pursuit of Progress podcast.
Have a great week.